Welcome to our podcast. I'm Chase.
I'm Cray.
I'm Brad.
This is Significant Brothers, and today we're talking about hammocks. One of the reasons that I wanted to do hammocking was because I recently gotten into it and found that it's very enjoyable. You don't hammock, Brad.
I do not hammock.
I do hammock, and I believe the central question of this podcast will be, will Brad want to buy a hammock by the end of it?
Because we have some pretty convincing points, don't we? I remember when all of us were kids, the neighbors next door had a hammock that was like a rope hammock and had like pieces of wood that supported it. And old fossils like us would think that that's the first time a hammock was ever around, but that's not true.
I mean, hammocks didn't exist in my life before that point.
I don't even remember this hammock.
It was pretty comfortable, I guess. It was like one of those yard hammocks that you just like kind of set out there.
Yeah, I remember hammocks being in my life at some point and laying in them, but never did I think to buy one. Probably because I was a kid and I didn't have an income.
Well, they also just kind of seem like they'd be like a kid wanting to buy a lawn chair. You know, it's just like, to me, it didn't seem like it was like a thing that you'd go set up and do.
Yeah, it just kind of seemed like a yard ornament.
Kind of, but they weren't always yard ornaments, were they?
No, they weren't.
Well, Brad, you are the resident hammock expert.
For never owning a hammock, I feel like I know more about the traditions and the hammockiness of hammocks than you guys do. Hammocks have been around for probably over 1,000 years. There's no like definitive origin date because you would think it wouldn't be that hard to come up with like suspended cloth in the air to keep off the ground and keep safe. But they weren't discovered by the Western world, by Western I mean European, until Columbus sailed over to the Caribbean.
In 1492.
In 1492, Columbus found hammocks. And I think the first place he found them were the Bahamas. They were mainly used to keep yourself off the ground from predators like snakes and biting ants. They had a harder time accessing you when you were in a hammock. And they weren't the cloth stuff that we have today. They were all made from, ironically, the hammock tree. I feel like that's kind of where us as Western civilization got the name hammock, was from the hammock tree, but it's spelled differently, and it could just be an evolution of language type thing.
If they're making hammocks out of a hammock tree, what are they hanging their hammocks on? Was it out of its bark?
Well, it's more like, think of like an aloe vera plant. It's not like a tree that just the bark is really, it's not like an oak tree and it's really rigid. It's soft type of bark.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Almost like the whole thing's made out of leaves. It's fibrous.
It actually came from the word hamaka, which is a Spanish word, but also I think maybe it was a Haitian word, meaning fishnet. Does that sound familiar?
Yes. So Spanish makes sense. Columbus spoke Spanish, a lot of Spanish, and then Haitian was also in the area, and they used hammock-like things to also catch fish. Ended up becoming very closely related to each other. Because when they came back over from Central America, Columbus brought over some hammocks, and they became very popular very fast, especially on naval ships. So they weren't just sleeping on the floor of the actual decks, they could actually suspend themselves. That was a lot more comfortable for them.
It was comfortable because if you were in one of the normal naval beds, if the ship tilted, you'd fall out of the bed.
You would fall out of the bed.
But with a hammock, it moves with the ship.
Now see, I'm imagining some poor sailor on the very wall of the boat, and it's just tumultuous out there, and he just keeps getting hit against the wall. That sounds kind of uncomfortable to me.
I think for first-year midshipmen, that's a common thing.
Oh.
I'm kidding, no.
Yeah, it originated in the Bahamas among the wealthy families, and because there's a lot of trade routes in that area, just between the neighboring countries, it spread very quickly. So estimations are we know for sure they existed right up until the beginning of the 16th century, but they probably existed for probably 1,000 years at this point.
So it started out as a practical way to sleep, and then among the wealthy families it became trendy or leisurely. I
don't know if they ever really found their way into modern culture until the past 50 years. It was mainly just used on because once you had a house, you didn't need a hammock anymore. You had beds and you were safe from the outside environment, and the really only good purposes were on ships. And those were used up until post-World War II, right up until about the Vietnam War is when I think they stopped really using them in naval ships, at least in America.
And that kind of makes sense. I feel like people wouldn't use them regularly, at least in the Western world, because maybe they would associate it with savages or not necessary because you're not on a boat, because maybe they view the indigenous people over there as savages and them being better as that, so they just wouldn't use hammocks. That's all just a guess, obviously. Maybe they just weren't that comfortable and mass manufactured either.
This is an image of how you should properly sleep in a hammock.
Yes.
If we have show notes, then that's...
So you shouldn't be sleeping directly in the middle. You should be at an angle.
Yeah, slightly at an angle, which I've been experimenting with. Not really experimenting.
Yeah, how's it gone?
It's a bit better than just going straight down the middle, because if you go straight down the middle, more than likely you are gonna shift to one side slightly, and then you're just gonna be out of whack. So if you go diagonally, you end up having a bunch more room for your legs. You can spread out more if you go diagonally. It's more comfortable.
Plus, I think there's like a natural spine that forms when the hammock is taut. And, it's like you can lay on that and that'll put more support on your back.
Yeah, if you go slightly diagonal, you can keep your back more straight than what you could, obviously, going straight down the middle. Then you'll be like a banana.
I thought it was going to be just overwhelmingly bad for your back. I don't know if you guys thought that too. It seems like it would.
Well, I just remember you saying for the longest time that because at cross-country camp, there were hammocks there, and once a night, we would sleep in those hammocks overnight, and those, I thought, were pretty uncomfortable hammocks. That's just me, though.
They were insanely uncomfortable.
Okay, yeah, they were very uncomfortable, and you couldn't sleep well, and maybe your back hurt in the morning, and then, yeah, it makes sense that hammocks would be bad for your back.
This was not a headline to grab attention necessarily, and I say that because it was an NPR article, but I will say this to get the attention of you guys. Sleeping in a hammock makes you smarter.
Totally hear that in an NPR podcast.
Yeah.
But keep going, so it makes you smarter, huh?
Yes. This is just kind of like, it's a loose connection, but this one guy, Mikael Mulathaler, he is a psychology researcher at the University of Geneva in Switzerland, and he would commute on the train to his job, and he noticed that when they were on the train, people were falling asleep early in the morning, and he thought that it was weird that they were falling asleep because he's like 6 a.m., 7 a.m., people shouldn't be asleep at this time, the sun is up, they probably already got a full night's sleep. Why are they going to sleep on the train? So he kind of did some research, and it turns out that when your brain is rocked in a sort of way, kind of more, they don't use hammocks in their research, but like kind of in a back and forth motion, he found that like it made it easier for them to fall asleep with a back and forth motion, kind of like rocking, like a baby in a cradle.
Okay.
In a hammock, the brain waves that are made make it easier to concentrate.
So what you're saying is that in my classrooms next year, I should set up a hammock so I can concentrate better.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Oh, so what it fortifies waves that are already intrinsically there. It just makes them stronger. So the brain waves that are there like help with concentration, but if you're in a sleep, it will make your sleep not necessarily deeper, but the waves stronger during that, and also stronger before you go to sleep so that it's easier to fall asleep and then I guess stay asleep. One of the things he said is if you are like reading a book in a hammock, the rocking can strengthen the brain waves and then make your concentration stronger, and then therefore help you learn the stuff that you're reading and therefore make you smarter. So hammocks make you smarter.
Do you think it'd be beneficial to just get rid of beds altogether and sleep in hammocks?
I don't know. What do you think, Ray?
Well, it's only fair to choose one of two extremes, so...
Yeah.
I shouldn't. Okay. Altogether, it's maybe wrong.
Just for practicality's sake, I would say a mattress would be better because you could put in, I don't know, bolts on the side of your walls and then you could hang them on, but eventually it'll tug at the walls and it'll kind of ruin the walls or bend whatever you stuck inside the wall. So, unless you have like a really good system, I guess just don't put it in the wall and you'd be fine with a hammock for your bed.
Can I talk about my bit?
Sure.
At least some of it. So the health benefits or drawbacks of having a hammock. After much research, on the health benefits of hammocks, I've concluded that they're the standing desk of sleeping furniture. It's the cheaper alternative that you wouldn't come across unless some guy told you how it changed his life. I hope in 10 years people will be rallying around futons instead. And in all likelihood, the people are just trying to cut corners in some way, because clearly hammocks are more affordable than a mattress, which are obscene. Have you ever looked at the prices of mattresses?
They're expensive.
They're weirdly expensive.
That's true, and hammocks really don't have to be that expensive as far as bedding goes. If you can make your own stand, it's not terribly expensive if you go the DIY route.
And do you know what I mean by, like, it's the standing desk of furniture?
It's healthier.
Yeah, because everyone's
it's a little more inconvenient.
Everyone's crowing about it, but it's like, if it was so obvious that standing, like, while you're working, was a thing, like, people would do it more. I feel like it's maybe you could have this conspiracy that the chair company USA is lobbying offices to like give chairs to their employees. Naturally, I'd rather be sitting. I think we're supposed to sleep standing up too. I say to hell with hammocks. We've talked a lot about this hammocking, but is that correct? What do we call it?
I don't think there's one good verb to describe hanging in a hammock. Besides the word hammocking, which it's not official, not yet. I think if enough people hammocked, then it would become a real verb. But I would say hammocking is the best way to describe what you're doing. Any other verb like hanging or posting up or lounging or slothing, you have to describe that you're also doing that in a hammock. The thing about running is it's one word and you know what you're referring to. Posting up, you don't. That could be anything. Hammocking, I'm good for. Mocking, though, we
know someone who shortens it like that. One, mocking would not be anything without the word hammocking. It's like where you put the apostrophe before it, like it's the improper usage of it.
We do that with words, though. I'm trying to think of one.
Well, that's true. We shorten words that derives from larger words all times, like probs, totes, ridic.
Like, I'm sure there's other words like mocking that we use.
Yes. Someone that we all know exclusively used mocking to say hammocking.
The thing is with words like totes to describe totally, in a sentence if you say I totes like this cat, you know that person is not talking about tote bags, the plural of tote bags. But with mocking, be like, we are mocking. Oh, so are you hanging in a hammock or are you mocking somebody? Mocking already has a definition and we shouldn't muddle it any further. I will not stand for this. But really, in reality, I think if a hammocking subculture grows, this word will continue to be used and it'll probably come into our language easily enough.
People already know what you mean. No one's gonna... I think even old people, if you'd say, I'm going hammocking, they'd be like... I mean, they know what the word hammock is.
Yeah, hammocking I think is totally appropriate. Mocking is a bit silly, but I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. I'm not gonna use it unless it's ironically.
But is the hammocking culture growing at all?
I would like to think so, because I swear it's more popular now than what it used to be. Like,
I'll tell you, do you not see people at like parks and stuff with like hammocks out?
I don't live near a park.
Well, a lot of people, no, it's insane.
On college campuses, a ton of people hammock.
Yeah.
I did see it when I was in college a few years ago. I did see it, and probably from the point when I was a freshman to the point when I was done with college, I saw more people hammocking the further I went.
And I don't know, I think it's nice. Without hammocking, like all those people would just be laying on the ground.
They'd be one with the dirt, and we're better than dirt. I mean, if you look at the subreddit hammocks, it's pretty large, and you always see people posting on there, I joined you guys, I got a hammock, and I almost wonder with this rising subculture of hammocks, if there's like this established old crust of people who did hammocks for camping, and they hate us, you know?
So, Brad, what would you say your opinion is on hammocks now?
I think more highly of hammocking than I did before the podcast. I would like to get one. I just really don't have anywhere to do it, like close to where I live.
That can be a problem.
That makes sense.
Like maybe there is kind of a trail near where I live, but it's kind of more like a recreation where people can go running or walk their dogs and play basketball and tennis.
You ever laid in a hammock before?
Probably just old rope ones. Like, I've never really been in a hammock.
Well, hey.
I can think of.
Why don't we go fix that now?